Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to NVTV. We are here today at the Buckeye Lake Brewery with Rich to talk to him about his business. One of the things we're going to try to do with NVTV is provide you as much information about small businesses as we can. So that is going to entail sitting down with professionals to give you information, but then also, and what we're doing today is to sit down with Rich, sit down with small business owners and have them tell you their stories. So if you're thinking about getting into small business or you are in a small business, it's oftentimes helpful to hear other business owners talk about their businesses, what works, what doesn't work, and you can learn a lot that way. So Rich, before we really get into the business itself, tell me a little bit about your background.
Before I opened the brewery, I worked in graphic production. I worked for a retail design firm in Columbus. I did that for about 20 years, and was pretty much in the retail design segment of it. But I dealt with graphic production.
Okay, you were in it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Did you like it? You stayed in it for a while.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. It was great, and it wasn't until my position started to change away less from graphic production and more towards kind of an IT type position that that's when I started to think about other things.
Okay. And then how did brewing become another thing that you were thinking about doing?
When I had decided that it was time to make a career change, I started doing a lot of research, started looking at a lot of different industries, mostly in the graphics industry. But while I was researching T-shirt places and wide format printing and things like that, I stumbled across this website called ProBrewer.com, and they have a website dedicated to brewing professionals, and I couldn't get away from it. I spent an entire weekend just constantly looking at all of the posts and questions and all of those things, and after that weekend of looking at it, I Googled how to start your own brewery, and I found this little brewery in Colorado called Colorado Boy Brewing, and there's a guy out there. His name is Tom Hennessy, and he teaches people how to open breweries. So for $2,500, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out there and see what this is all about.
Yeah, I'm interested then. What on the website was intriguing to you? Was it the brewery and the beer side of the business, or was it the business side of the business that was really intriguing to you?
The thing that really got me was that people were posting questions. Some of them were pretty complex, and some of them were pretty basic and easy. And it didn't matter really what it was, but people were answering their questions. They were not making them feel like idiots. They were just being very helpful. And I thought, man, what a great industry to be in, where you've got this resource where when you stumble across something, somebody can help you. And a lot of the questions had to do with starting your own brewery. So I was able to, I just saw that wow, this is going to be very helpful for somebody just starting out.
Yeah. So it actually ended up being the community that was around it that was most intriguing to you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So as you started to get into actually brewing, did you home brew for a while before?
I had never brewed before.
Jump right into it?
I never brewed before. After I signed up for that class, there was about a 2-month lag to where before I was going to go to Colorado. So I went ahead and started buying my home brewing equipment, and I just wanted to kind of familiarize myself with the process. I knew that I was never going to be the brewer, that was going to require a professional. But I needed to know what I was getting into.
Sure. Okay. So when you were leaving the graphic design company, or your position as a graphic designer, were you leaving thinking you were going to start a business, or were you just evaluating options?
I actually was pretty lucky in that I had started the process of opening the brewery and I actually opened the brewery. So I worked full time at my other job for about a year and a half while the brewery was open. So I would get up in the morning, I would come here, meet with my brewer, I would go to work, and then after work I would come back and work in the tap room.
Right.
So it was...
That's a pretty consistent story when it comes to starting a business.
It was...
Starts a side hustle and
work
16 hours a day. And
it was critical. I don't think I could have done it if I hadn't done it that way. And definitely had my fingers crossed that when I told my employer what was going on, that they would keep me on.
Yeah.
So, and it worked out great. Yeah, it worked out
That's a
great.
nice employer. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was great.
Yeah. So as you were doing that, was the graphic design helping to fund the business, or did you have to go get capital loans and that kind of thing to get started, or
we
you just started real small? And
we cashed in everything.
Okay.
So we capitalized it with our retirement.
Okay.
And
went all in.
yeah, and then we supported ourselves through my job as graphic production, and so that made it so we didn't have to pull money out of the brewery until we were a year and a half into it.
Okay, and that's real helpful.
Couldn't have made it. Couldn't have made it.
Yeah, we talked with an accountant the other day, and he was stressing the need for capital. And you get into a slow spot in year one and year two, and you don't have that reserve or that extra income, that other income, in this case from your other job, and you can really just kill your business right there and then.
Yeah, it very easily could have just fizzled out from the very beginning.
So how long ago was that you started and you were running the two jobs simultaneously?
Well, 2010 is when in May of 2010 is when I started looking at the website. And then the class was in August, and then we found this location here in Buckeye Lake in March of 2011, and then we opened the doors in February of 2012. So it took us almost a year to get the building in shape and get the licensing and everything that we needed. And then another year and a half, so it was June of 13 that I left the retail design firm.
Okay. Talk a little bit about, you said it was a year, that year process, because I think a lot of people think, hey, I'm going to start a business, I have this idea, and they'd be actually really good at whatever, in this case, brewing beer, but there's 1,000 other things that go with it and around it that people aren't prepared for. And
well, in the brewing industry in particular, I noticed that a lot of them are started by brewers, and they don't realize that there's so much besides brewing that needs to be done, that very quickly after they get open, they have to hire a brewer, because just running a business in itself, just dealing with just the day-to-day operations and making sure that things are ready when your customers come in, it takes a lot of time.
It does.
And so, and I think that's probably true with everything. Like if you're a mechanic or you're a plumber or whatever you start out to do, you'll find very shortly into it that you no longer have time to do what your specialty is. Right. So that's something that people need to take into consideration, that if you have a hobby and you like it, you might want to keep it as a hobby. Right. Because, let's put it this way, I have not brewed a batch of beer since I opened. And I actually did start to enjoy brewing as I was going through the learning process. And someday I hope to brew again.
But you're so busy running the business.
There's no time.
So you don't have to go into too much detail, but what are the sorts of things that you do as a business owner that's not brewing? I think that's kind of informative for a lot, because a lot of that it will be will translate to other businesses.
Yeah, well, I do. I'm basically, I fill in the gaps. So anything that you don't have someone who's dedicated, that's their job. So it could be something that comes up on a weekly basis. It could be a daily basis. Just simple little things of being there to receive packages or orders and making sure that you got everything. Right. If somebody's brewing, they don't have time to go over and leave their job to make sure everything's okay. And then also anything that has to do with the money, when the checks come in, just making sure that all of they were written for the right amount, and that they got the product that they wanted, and that just that everything's accounted for. Things like that.
Right. And then
ordering things too. I mean, you have to order things for the tap room. I have to order things for the brewery. Yeah, just anything that has to do with just keeping it going.
How's having employees?
It can be difficult. Mostly just dealing with their different schedules and filling in for when they're not there. That can be a challenge right there because you're a small business, so you don't have a lot of overlap in employees. So if somebody is going to be gone for a few days, you're not necessarily prepared. You don't have somebody trained to do what they do. So you try to unfortunately, they usually end up working more before they leave and then more when they get back to kind of make up for it.
Right.
But that's just how it is, working in a small business.
It's the reality of any small business. And
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a business owner, in this case, if you're an employee, like you said, you got to work to prepare to leave and then catch up when you get back.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think has been you've hinted on a couple of them, but what's been really the biggest challenge as a business owner for you?
That staffing thing has been a really big deal. We're always understaffed. You always want to, you're always hesitant to make that next hire for a position, to take on payroll.
Right.
You're always hesitant to, even though you've got it, because you never want to lay anybody off. And so you're constantly, for us, I feel like we're always short-handed. And there's always something that I'm getting ready to leave at the end of the day and I'm like, oh, I forgot. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And if you had that other person, those things would have been taken care of. Right. And so it makes your days stretch longer. And it makes it, to where you can kind of get burned out.
Sure. And a lot of small business owners do for that reason. What would you think, or what would you say your typical day is in terms of, or week? How many hours a week do you think you're putting into running a business?
It's really difficult to say because I have a hard time breaking up. I work at home a lot. So I'll be out during the day doing things, but anytime something comes to mind, I jump down on the computer. If it's like, oh, we need to order this, or I'm thinking about buying this piece of equipment, or which one should I get? And so I can spend 2 or 3 hours a night in front of the computer researching something. We just had to replace one of our vans. Usually when I buy a vehicle, it takes me about 3 months to figure out what I'm going to get.
Right.
Well, I needed a van right now, and so I'm sitting there at night. I'm researching where to find a van. All these vans. What model do I want? Where can I get the best deal? Then I gotta research the. I need to buy some. I need a cage for it. So now I'm looking for some accessories that I need to add on to it that it didn't come equipped with. Right. So it's almost never ending, just those little things. And for me, when it comes to mind, that's when I do it. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's 7 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Or 4 in the morning, to be honest.
And it can sound like maybe we're trying to talk people out of being a small business owner, but you need to know what you're getting into and you need to really love what it is you do because when you're an employee, if it's 9 to 5, at 5 o'clock you're going home,
right? And
you can kind of check out.
Oh yeah.
But when you own a business, it is. I'm going through the exact same thing at the moment actually too. I'm evaluating equipment, and I have a child that had a fever, and we were up to 2 in the morning, so I was holding her, watching YouTube videos and doing research on a piece of equipment. It just never stops. And when something needs to be done, like you said, at the end of the day, there's nobody else to take care of it.
Yeah.
Your employees have gone home, so it's on you.
Yeah. Yesterday we realized that we needed to deliver a keg, and it was about 4:30. And I was the only one here. Right. And it's like, oh, we missed this one. Well, guess who did it?
Right.
So you throw it in the van and you go take off and you go deliver.
Yeah.
So.
How's the work-life balance for you?
Well, I will say this. I have been able to cut the weekends out. Yeah. So because our situation, we have a commercial side of the business where we sell to bars and restaurants, and then we have our retail side of the business, which is the tap room. Because of that, I've been able to give up the running of the tap room to someone else, and then so that means that I focus mostly on the commercial side, and which means that it is generally a Monday through Friday type of a gig, and then I've been able to let go of the tap room, and so that has allowed me to do some things on the weekends. Where it took me about 4 years to get to that point, though. So for the first 4 years, it was pretty much 7 days a week. Just every minute that you weren't doing something else, I was doing something for the brewery.
What was that? You said let go. I think that's a good phrase to be using, because a lot of business owners are so into what they're doing that.
Well, it helps to have people that you can trust.
Right.
So you finally get to where you have people that you can trust, and that's where you can let go. Yeah. If you don't have experienced people, or you don't have that comfort level, then you can't. Then you're still there. You're looking at the cameras, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And but once you have people that you can trust, then you're able to just kind of let go. And as long as I see the sales figures are not dipping, then I know that we're doing okay. And the reviews, we watch the reviews and see what our customers tell us. And we've seen a couple reviews that have made us question what's going on. And now that I look back, it's like, oh, you know what? We didn't have the staff in place during those times, and now we do. So we haven't really seen those any bad reviews for a while.
That's good.
Yeah. No, it's been great.
Great. What do you love best about it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to like about it. I mean, obviously, I love interacting with our customers. And that's something I didn't know about me before I did open the business. And I think because I was the owner of the business, people started to come up to me. So that's something I realized, that I really like talking to people, even whether it's on the retail side or the commercial side. I love the business. I love talking about the business. And so I really like that. But then also, from the actual work side of it, I really like the branding part of it. I like coming up with the names of the beers and working with the graphic designer to come up with designs to that will communicate that brand. I really like the branding on it.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense given the 20-year history you had with graphic
Well, yeah,
design.
and it's funny too, because when people ask me these questions about how I got started and everything, and there's a story I tell about when I was a kid, in about the 4th grade, I collected beer cans. So I had about 300 beer cans. Some I inherited from my brothers, and my dad would, when he was on a trip or something, he'd bring beer cans back, and I had a subscription to Beer Can Monthly as a 6th grader. So I realized after I got the brewery open that I really have this affinity for brands, and that's what I liked about the beer can collection, was just all the different brands, and that just goes back to graphic design and graphics, and so really that has been something. The branding is something that is what drew me to the brewing industry. Right. Whereas a lot of people, it's the brewing, and I am and have been a craft beer fan, but I think it's the branding part of it that really got me into it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you've hit on the two big things that most small business owners struggle with are the finance side of it, which you talked a little bit about, making sure checks clear and taking care of that side of it, which is a particular side of your brain, and the other one then is actually the marketing side of it, which you have going too.
And the one thing I have to say about that is, branding is so important, and I tell everybody to hire a very good professional graphic designer. Look at their book, see what they've done, see what brands they've worked on, and make sure that you get someone good, and not just somebody who has a computer and knows how to use it. Right. Because branding is about color. It's about there's so much involved in it that requires a 4-year degree, and a lot of people don't really understand that. And the branding is who you are. It doesn't matter who you are. Right. It's
to the public.
It's who the people think you are. Yeah. What they think you are, and that's communicated through your branding. So I tell everybody, make sure you sock away some money for graphic design, and not just like $300. When you're putting that business plan together, and you're putting $10,000 for plumbing, $20,000 for, asphalt or whatever, these different things. Remember, your graphic designer is somebody that's going to work, 40 hours on your logo, and they're probably going to make about $50 to $100 an hour. So you better figure that into your budget, and it's worth every penny.
Right. Outside of the sort of the logo and the design of the brand, what are the other things that you've been doing over the years to sort of market and brand and get out in the community that has been successful?
Well, something, we just did this. We had a 0K run, and
My kind of run right there.
yeah, exactly. And
Why didn't I know about this, Rich?
And it rolls right into our branding. I mean, that's like when I had heard of someone else doing a 0K run, I was like, that's us. That's who we are.
Right.
As a social lake with a lot of retirement age people, it's just like that fit perfectly. So we did all the postings on Facebook about it. People could sign up in advance, and we had shirts printed up. We had a start and a finish line that were about, it was one end of the patio to the other end of the patio, and so at 1 o'clock everybody went out. They took their positions. I started the race, and within 10 seconds it was over, and we awarded the medals, and
Nice.
it just turned into this. It was a really fun event. People enjoyed it. We were able to raise over $1,000 for Buckeye Lake for Tomorrow, and they're responsible for clean water at Buckeye Lake. So it just, things like that, just being creative with your events, and making sure they tie into who you are, and not just doing an event to have an event. That's something that we've done marketing wise that was a huge success.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about the business side of it. Tell us about the business itself. What is Buckeye Lake Brewery?
Well, I mean, when we opened it, it was intended to be just a place that people in this area could get fresh beer. We try to brew traditional styles to style, and we try not to get too fancy. Although I will say that since we opened up, one of the things we have noticed is with our casks is people really like to see some infusions and coffee and different things put into the beers. So we have started to add some of that to try to keep our customers happy.
Right.
But also it's about having just a local tap room that like people can come and just talk to their neighbors and meet new people and just have a nice, relaxed, good time.
Yeah. So it's as much about building community and bringing people together as it is about.
Oh yeah.
The art of making
There are
beer.
a lot of people that come in here and they've made really good friends that they do things outside of the brewery now, where that never would have happened had we not opened. I tell another story. One of the things is when I was in Colorado and I was in their tap room, I was sitting there just observing, and I saw two people that lived. They were next door neighbors, and I was just watching them. And at the end of their conversation, the guy said, "Well, I can't believe we've lived next door for 10 years and we've never met each other." And they shook their hands, and I just said, "Man, that would be great." Well, then, in the first week that we were open, I witnessed the same thing. There were two people that lived 5 houses away from each other on the dam, and when they were done, one shook his hand and was like, "Well, now that we know each other," and so that was great. I was like, I couldn't believe we accomplished that so quickly.
Right. Yeah, that's true. We live a life. Most of us live lives that are a little insular, and we go home and kind of stay in our house, and a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
We might wave at our neighbors, but we don't really know them real well,
Right.
or hang out like you maybe one day. 50 years ago did, but
Yeah.
so it's places like this that then bring people together.
Yeah, and pretty much when you're in here, just about anybody will talk to you. So you can come in here by yourself, or you can come in here with a couple of friends, and then chances are you will all meet new friends.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
yeah.
So, well, what else is there that you want to tell people about either the operation or the experience of business ownership?
Well, I mean, about the operation, just that we recently have added food, and we're open 7 days a week. Where I don't think a lot of people realize that we're open every day, and that you can get really good food from the Chef Shack that we have that we added, which has been great to have that option every day of the week, versus having the food trucks sporadically out there.
Talk to me a little about that, because that's obviously an interesting business decision. What was the process of sort of evaluating, obviously, a whole new product line and a different offering?
For us, the problem that we had is anytime you bring somebody in from outside, you rely on them, and sometimes food trucks have problems. They break down, and so you can have a great food truck lined up on a great Thursday or Friday night, and they break down, and suddenly you're just like, well, there went half my customers. And so you try not to rely on other people. And so our idea was to try to bring that in-house. Right. And then also, with all the breweries that are opening up, it's getting a lot more competition for the food trucks. Well, I think we had 3 new breweries open up in Licking County this year, and we're all vying for the same food trucks. So we saw that coming, and said, that's something that if we can find a good partner to be here full time, then we could, and we did. We found a great partner that has just really good fresh food. And
so you actually had the demand already there built in with the food trucks.
Yeah.
People were accustomed to coming here and eating, so
Yes.
it was kind of an easy.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy transition, especially the way that it's set up, where people can walk up to the counter, order the food. They give them a buzzer, they go back to their seat, and then when the food's ready, they buzz them, they come up and get it. It's very similar to the food truck environment. So there was no training of customers, of how to deal with it. They already understood from the food trucks. So,
General question just about Buckeye Lake in general, as a lot of people who see this will know, or are in this community and communities around it, know that sort of the trouble the lake has been having with the dam situation. How is that progressing?
It's my understanding that it'll be ready for use this fall. The water level will come back on March 1st, and we'll have a big party for that, knowing that they're going to be closing the spillway and bringing the water level up. And I think having a 4-mile bike path out there adds a new element to where we'll get a different crowd come out that are cyclists. At least that's what we're hoping. Yeah. So
we were talking earlier. You have a bike rack out now.
Got the bike rack out, and hopefully we'll have to add another one.
So why did you decide Buckeye Lake was the place to open a brewery?
When I went to Colorado Boy, and I was there, we started talking, and he told me that Ridgway, Colorado was a town of about 800 people, and there was another town about 10 minutes away that had 2 breweries. Ridgway had 1 brewery, and they also have a same type of thing. There's a hot springs nearby, and so they have a seasonality to it. In the wintertime, they don't have much business because the ski resorts get all of that, and they're over an hour away. So because they were doing it with 800 people in their town, I thought, well, if they can make it, I'm pretty close to like 500,000 people. So I'm like, I know that we can make this work. And so Buckeye Lake, I immediately thought of it, and we had a cottage out here at Buckeye Lake, so I was very familiar with the area. It made sense. So so Buckeye Lake was one of the top locations as I was starting to look for locations.
All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. That was very informative, I know, for me, and I'm sure for everybody else. So thank you to all of you for tuning in, and we will see you next week on NBTV.